Hello, everybody. Welcome to my second ever episode. Today I interview a lovely young woman by the name of Shruti. She is a pharmacist by day and a musician by night. We talk about a lot of things. We go all over the place. We talk a bit about culture and just cultural clashes, We talk about her experiences balancing between this much more pragmatic career, which is her pharmacy, but then her passions as a musician. We talk a little bit about mental health, valuing one's own achievements and allowing things to grow as they go. I think this age group that we're both at represents like an interesting intersection, right? Because a lot of people are building the careers at this age group, right? You're postgraduate, you're out, but you're not an industry veteran at this point, right? And many people are building that which they will become in their 40s, or perhaps will not, right? Who knows? And I don't think that's a part of our lives or human lives that gets investigated terribly much. We tend to look at the people who've already achieved, and we only want to talk to those people, not the people that are currently building it right now. And I think there's a lot of practical advice to be found there if you're willing to dig, right? Because these are the people currently doing it. These are the people currently figuring out what it means to succeed in a particular field and balancing all of these aspects and this interesting intersection between the expectations you had as a child versus what you have to become or what reality wants of you. So if I've done my job well, that should come out through the podcast, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. As always, subscribe if you want to see more of these things, because the more success this brings, the more I can do this with my time. I can drive out to people and so on and so forth. Anyway, I hope you enjoy, and thank you for watching. Okay, Shruti, thank you so much for being here. I think we started off because I've got a list of questions for you. So the first one is just for viewers at home, who are you? Give me a basic introduction. What do you do?
Okay. Hi, I'm Shruti.
Hello, Shruti.
You know that already. I am a pharmacist by profession.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that we're going to talk about more today is that I'm a musician.
Yeah.
And I play the violin. That's my main instrument. But I also play some Indian classical instruments. And I also, I'm a music teacher, composer as well. So I am, music crazy, basically.
Yeah. So how did you fall into that? Have you always been
I come from a very strong background because my family made up of musicians. My mom, my dad is a full-time musician. I don't know why I said my mom first.
Yeah.
But my dad's a full-time musician. So that's my primary inspiration, you can say. So that's where it all started. And then obviously I went for music classes. I grew up in Durban. So I went to the Durban Music School where played Indian Western classical music, and at home was Indian classical.
What's the Durban Musical School like? Have you been to many? Have you seen what they're like? What should I picture?
This is an interesting question, because if you had to go there now, so it's a big building, obviously. It's a music school.
Yeah.
And there's just music notes on the walls, and it's just very, very artsy. And it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was some governor's house that they turned into a music school. So it's a very old, beautiful building with wooden floors and big staircases. And so that's, I used to be there half my life, actually. After school, we'd go there, play, have music lessons with my teachers, and then have music theory lessons, and then play in an orchestra. We had it a kids orchestra.
Okay. Oh, so this was, you went to, so when I first heard music school, I sort of assumed that this was something like a varsity type experience. But when you're saying in a kids orchestra.
No, this was when I was from the age of 8.
Oh, wow. So you started early, brother. In terms of music and
with the Durban Music School, yes, at the age of 8.
Oh, wow.
And I actually, with music though, I don't even remember when I started playing music, because my parents had it going in like
Yeah,
from a
it's
very
like
young age.
you show
So-
your kids the things you want them to do, you know, and if you're good at music, that's what you show them.
Exactly.
So,
Like I started playing the sitar. I don't know if you know what the sitar is.
I'm assuming from the name that it's pretty similar to a guitar, but I think I've also seen in your videos is that much, much longer.
It's a long neck,
long-necked.
and
Yeah.
the bottom is made of a gourd. Well, like a pumpkin, you can say.
Yeah, but like a
And-
hard, whatever. What is a pumpkin a fruit or is it a vegetable?
Vegetable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know
a
what I mean,
vegetable.
yeah.
So they like dry the vegetable. Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
that's the I digress. Sorry.
nature of the thing.
That's the sitar. So
Yeah.
I started the sitar at probably 6. That was my
Yeah,
first
wow.
performance. So, but
Your first performance.
I started young. I
Yeah.
mean, I wasn't playing like like a professional, but that was my
Yeah.
first like proper performance. Probably at
wow.
6. Yeah.
Dude,
And yeah,
I
I
think I
remember
was still
I
learning to
think
walk then.
my first musical memory though is I remember my mom teaching me Happy Birthday
Yeah.
on the harmonium. Do you know what's a harmonium?
No.
Okay, that's it has the keys of a piano, so the black and white keys, but there's a bellow, so it's kind of like an accordion but flipped on. Yeah, so you play it like this,
Okay.
where you pump and then you
Okay.
play.
Okay. Wow. This is definitely something. But okay, just for the
So, yeah.
for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna have in my head flute piano. It's close enough, you know. There's like a woodwind aspect to it, but okay.
Yeah. There
So
is
you
a wind aspect. There's a bellow that you have to
Yeah,
pump. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that was the first.
I can cringe at that later. you
It's
know?
okay.
Yeah.
It's an Indian instrument, so that's the first thing. It's a very easy instrument. That's probably a little bit of a controversial thing to say, but it's the easier of the instruments to play. Let me put it to you that way. So
Okay. Well, you got to start somewhere.
yeah,
right?
that was where I started. I started probably maybe 3 years old, 4 years old with that. That was
Yeah.
my first musical memory, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, and what else was I gonna say? Yeah,
Well,
that's
no,
about
okay,
it.
So you basically
it's
started really early,
Yeah.
you know, and then so you went from there into a music school, which like
that was Western classical though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the genre or
That I
So-
studied Western classical.
oh Western classical, right? Because that's actually a whole other topic. Just because I don't know what would you call it. Normally you just say classical, you know, but then Western classical is like, oh no, of course you've got to take into account both traditions, right?
Yeah, because they're
Yeah.
very different to each other. I
Yeah.
mean, Indian classical music is very melodic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of focus on the types of notes you use, and Western classical the layers are very interesting. You can
Yeah.
have 10 people playing completely different things and it makes one sound, you know.
Could I ask you your opinion on something?
Yeah.
So I have a friend who did, I don't know if he started as early as you, but just another musical person, right?
Okay.
And he told me the story of one time, during his courses or his classes, they were teaching basically about how music is sort of culturally tied.
Yes.
What do I mean by that? Like, you associate happy birthday with happiness because that's when it gets sung, right?
Yes.
And so there's nothing sort of inherent in the music itself.
Yes.
It's how we relate to it. And I wasn't never quite sure if I agreed with that. There's a question coming, I swear. So essentially the story goes that an orchestra is tuning up, right? And there's an Asian man in the front, like Chinese perhaps. Basically, for the crux of the story, it's someone who is outside of the Western tradition of music, right? And he, at the end, they asked him what his favorite part was of the whole orchestra, and he points to the beginning when everyone was tuning their instruments, right? And I couldn't tell. I was like, okay, did he really truly enjoy the first part of the orchestra, or was it like one of those lost in translation things and everyone's so keen to fit his words into their box that they won't follow up and be like, but what do you mean? And you know, just the
I love
kind
this
of-
question.
Yeah.
Because so recently I went to watch Swan Lake. That's a very, very famous ballet.
Yeah,
Tchaikovsky.
You're going to have to tell me all these things,
Yeah.
man.
So it's a ballet, Tchaikovsky ballet.
Yeah.
So there's a live orchestra that played, and I went with a friend, and as soon as the orchestra started tuning, I had goosebumps. And I think it's a thing of relativity because I grew up playing in orchestras, right? So the sound of tuning an orchestra is very familiar.
It's like the anticipation. Here it comes.
It's anticipation, yes, but it's also like
Home?
it feels like home because all the instruments are going to be tuned the same way. You hear an A, that's the first thing that you hear, and then the instruments like kind of work around that A to tune themselves, right? So whether I'm playing in South Africa, whether I'm playing in India, whether I'm playing in Australia with an orchestra, I'm saying that tuning is standard. No matter what the piece is going to come after, it's the same. It's the same sound that I would get if I'm playing in a kiddies orchestra or in a professional orchestra, because you're playing open strings or you're just tuning your instrument, you know?
Why does that...
So that's probably why the guy found it like very, I mean, it's homely almost.
Right, I wanted to ask, why is it that the uniform... Because I've often found in my experience that people who like music or are good at music tend to also have a gift for math as well. And math is order in some ways, right? So I wonder if the fact that, you know, across the world, wherever you're playing an A's and A's and A's and A, if that uniformity appeals to you. Like,
440 hertz, you know?
Yeah, is that the A?
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. You know?
So, the maths thing is true. I mean, I'm a pharmacist. So science was a very big part of my life, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I did maths in university. I did physics in university. I did chemistry, whatever. So I can tell you, let me use my Indian music for this answer, because when I play Indian classical music, so we use different beats cycles, right? So like I'm doing this because we always count it on our fingers, right? So you get like a 6-beat cycle, 7-beat cycle, 10-beat cycle, 12, 14, 16, like
and is
whatever.
Is this different from that like 4/4 time? Is it a different way of conceiving it?
Yes, in Indian well, you can say the 8-beat cycle is very similar to the 4-beat cycle. That's what we are used to. That's what music, the 2, 3, 4. Yeah, but then can I demonstrate? Like, for example,
Go as close to the mic as you can and clap as loud as you can. Don't do it.
Sorry to the viewers. Anyways, the one, okay, let me explain. So for example, we call it tal, actually. So tal is the terminology used for rhythm, and we believe it's like a cyclic thing. So it continues and it ends like a clock. It goes on and on and on, right? So for example, let's do a 16-beat cycle. That's a very popular cycle in Indian classical music. So you have stronger beats and weaker beats. So it would be counted like this: dha, din, din, dha, dha, din.
Yeah, very similar.
Dha, din, din, da, da, din, din, da. So you notice that when my voice goes a little bit higher, that's where the open sounds come.
Yeah.
So that's a 16-beat cycle. So it's 4/4/4. Then we get.
Oh, I understand. Yes.
So we get like a 10-beat cycle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Din na, din, din na, din na, din, din na, din na.
Yeah.
You get it?
Yeah.
So that's probably where the maths thing comes, right?
Yeah, it's predictivity. It's predicting the next thing to come in a way, right?
Yeah. And in Indian classical music, a lot of it is improvised. Well, like you can say most of it is improvised, but that's a different, on how it's improvised, that's a different topic. But coming back to the tal, which is the rhythm part of it, it always has to end on 1. That's so if we're doing a 10-beat cycle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1.
Yeah.
That 1 is where it needs to end. So you can do whatever you want as long as you end on 1.
As long as you sort of keep within the structure.
Exactly. So
that's
So that's where I think the mathematical thing comes.
I had a couple of thoughts to that. One, it's the idea of conceptualizing music as a circle struck me as particularly like religious, you know, like as a cycle that continues and you're always right. It's like it.
I wouldn't wouldn't say religious, maybe spiritual.
Well, what I'm saying is just that the vibe I get from listening to this is one of dance, something like that. And improvisation where you're allowed to do whatever you basically want within that, but like within a structure. Yeah, it just struck me as very like free form. I don't know. We might be able to get to a useful idea there, but there's something developing there. Anyway, but I wanted to ask. So leading into this now, so you for your day job, you're a pharmacist now. And I wanted to ask, like, okay, because what it really sounds like is your passion is the music, but there's had to be like a trade-off going on between like what I can do, does pragmatism, getting money on the table, and then following the dream or something like that. So what's that looked like for you? What did that decision look like for you?
See, I always find that music is my central point, right?
Yeah.
So growing up, I actually wanted to study music after matric, and it didn't happen due to, I don't even know why. I would probably say destiny if I don't know if I believe in it, but it's just one of those things that just happened. I didn't get to do it. So because luckily my family told me do physics and biology and whatever, just as a backup in high school, just in case your music plans don't work. So when I actually started with the BSc in genetics for a year.
I'm so sorry. Because I also did that.
Yeah. Just a year though. Yeah. I didn't complete that because I decided to move to pharmacy because of various reasons. I also just applied and I got in. I don't know whether that counts as a reason that's valid, but I applied and I got in. So I just took it, I also had friends who were pharmacists and they seemed pretty happy. Yeah. So I studied pharmacy and like after a year of BSc, and then the fact is that through my studies, like being in university, I did a lot of music on the side. So I was very, like, you can say emotionally satisfied with the fact that I was still playing music. Yeah. And I think it's still a battle that I go through till this day. Like, I mean, till yesterday, I was having this conversation with my parents. Like, I really want to do music full time, but I'm also a pharmacist. There's this duality in my life that I'm not sure how it's going to pan out, because I feel like maybe one day I will do music full time. I actually feel like that day is something that I want to happen. It's just that as you grow older, I mean, you want stability and you want...
And like a certain... my experience has been that a certain reality starts to set in. Something like... A couple of things like that. I mean, so for example, I always wanted to study the brain, right? But when I took a look at going overseas, it turned out to be like R1 million just for like 1 year to be there.
Trust me, I got into one of these universities. Well, I wouldn't say got in, but I passed the first round of auditions. Yeah. But I didn't go on with the auditions because of the price.
Yeah. And I mean, they joke you because they know that,
we're international students too.
Yeah. If you literally look at the fee structures of a lot of those things, it's like international students, like 10 times the going rate, and then a local student, like all the way down. So, I mean, is what it is, right?
I think what keeps me going is that music is it's as deep as the ocean, as big as the universe, like there's always things to learn. Yeah. So that really keeps me going because there's no end to learning, right? So even if I did a degree, I'll still be wanting to learn.
Yeah, but specifically about music, you mean?
About music, yeah. I mean, I suppose a lot of things in life is something where you're always learning, right? Yeah. So music is kind of a metaphor for life if you think about it. But I mean, there's always stuff to learn. There's always more to do. Like my dad always told me, whatever you know can fit into books, or even like a series of books. Yeah. But whatever you don't know can fit into libraries, Yeah.
Yes.
And music is like that for me. Yeah. It's really, And that's what keeps me going as a pharmacist, because I still have a teacher. Even though I teach music, I still have teachers for my music. I have an Indian classical teacher and a Western classical teacher. I have dreams of learning more. And I think that yearning for wanting to learn keeps me going as a pharmacist.
So what I'm hearing is that like you value stability, right? And the pharmacy words provides that to you, right? But at the same time, it sounds like you would go insane if you didn't get something of music.
1,000% true.
And so what you've done is you've made a compromise, and you've taken the stability, but you've also built in mechanisms to keep music part of your life.
Yes.
With the trajectory in the future that, you know, we'll see where this goes. I'm always going to keep the door open for these opportunities, come what may. And I think that leads into, it makes me, I had a question which was supposed to be like the first one, but who cares?
Yeah.
Which was basically, I know that you had started a YouTube channel something like 8 years ago, right? And just listening to you now, it starts to make more sense why you done that. Because the question basically was, you know, why had you created this, and what went into the decision making for it?
I suppose it's when you're a musician, when you're an artist, you constantly want to share. Well, I personally can speak for myself.
Everyone
I
wants
want to share.
art, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm so good, come listen to me. No, it's more of, this is what I love. If you like it, then listen to it. Maybe it will bring a smile to your face, or maybe people sometimes listen to me and give me good criticism. You know, I think with that ultimate goal of wanting to grow is why I started the YouTube channel. Anyways,
Can I jump in there, because what you mentioned something that resonated with me, and it was when you spoke about the innate desire to perform, but not from a narcissistic perspective, like this deep desire.
No.
And I think a lot of artists struggle with that for sure, because, you know, there is something like, narcissistic is the wrong word for this, but there is something center staging about performance, right? Because like, if we literally think about the hierarchy of the space, you've got like an audience, and then like one person up, we literally elevate you, right? And I was just thinking, I just wanted to point out in a kind of like encouraging way, you know, that I think that sort of instinct is really, really pure. And deeper than that, if we all followed that voice of cynicism that tells you to get off the stage, life would get a lot more boring, because there would be no stages.
Precisely.
You know what I'm saying? So
precisely. And it, you know what? I think also when I am on stage, I feel like that's kind of where I belong. Like it's that feeling that, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing, you know?
Yeah.
And when it happens, and I see like the audience responding in a positive way, I mean it's like a kind of a give and take situation, because I hope that they're also enjoying it, and they're also giving like it's bringing a smile to their face kind of a thing, you know? I mean, music is also a spiritual thing for me. And I think taking people away from their troubles, away from the stress of life, music is a great thing to make it, to pull yourself away. I mean, sometimes you just need to have like a really happy song, and then suddenly you're in a good mood, you know? So that's what I feel when I'm on stage. Like I really hope that people are feeling the emotions.
Love. Yeah. I mean, I have a friend, his name is Sterling Scholes. He went on to be like a laser scientist. Cool. But he was interesting for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was because he saw the world in a very interesting way, like in a very scientific, broken up way. And I remember being out at like some festival with him. Yeah. And I watched him deconstruct it, right? We were like, there was a stage, and he sort of broke apart the illusion of it, right? Yeah. You know, pointed out where the sound guys were, and you know, and you know, I think when you're young, you inhabit the world, right? When you're older, you make the world. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it's just something I've seen, like older. Anyway, there's a point I'm trying to get to here. and he really spoke about how, if we fast forward 1,000 years into the future, so we lose all cultural ties to this, and we look back in like an anthropologist's kind of perspective, back on this moment, you could look at it like you would say this is religious, right? Like people spend huge chunks of their savings to go on large and long pilgrimages, essentially, like around the globe to, commune with thousands of others to just listen to stuff. And there's there is this religious aspect to it.
Yeah.
Where the hell was thou going with that? Anyway, carry on.
That's what I was saying. Spiritual.
Yeah.
Spiritual. I wouldn't say religious, because religious also comes. It's a little bit of a touch and go,
Yeah, I've seen you react to that word a couple of times. You prefer to use spiritualism over religion.
Because for me, what is spirituality? Spirituality is a way that I can connect with myself.
Yeah.
In a way that, realizing that we are, this is getting so deep, but we are actually not.
We can talk about farts if you want.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I like this.
Yeah.
But spirituality for me is something deeper. It's something where it's like a happiness that is sustaining. That's not just going to be like a once off 1 second kind of a happiness.
To sound like a douchebag here, it's not a hedonic treadmill, as one might think. You know what I mean? It's like you don't, when you said sustaining, like hedonic treadmill means you just have to keep sprinting and then it moves you back to this baseline.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying.
It's a way of connecting, also, to other people, to break, like if I play a piece, right? And you are listening, hypothetically speaking, we are now connecting on that piece of music, right? So if you are listening intently,
Yeah.
And sometimes people feel emotions. There have been times where I played and people cried, why? It's because they're connecting to their own inner being, like to their own emotions. They're being one with their emotion. They're being in the moment almost. Spirituality is also being in the moment. So
it's interesting because there's a lot of I'm just noticing parallels to like humor, because essentially for me, if two people find something funny, it means they both understood it, right? And you have to share a cultural background or some sort of a background. Like me and you, we can make jokes with each other because we speak the same language. Do you know what I mean? That's like the shared territory.
Yeah.
It's like if a German dude starts, and you're like, what the fuck is he talking?
Yeah.
Anyway, so it just struck me as interesting the fact that music is doing something very similar to this other form of art, and then you start to think about all forms of art. But then I feel like I'm about to say something like saccharine, not true. Just to see, I'm just basically relating to you. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Carry on. Keep going.
Yeah, so what was I saying? Spiritual.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about in a religious sense, I'm Hindu. So there's a lot of our culture that responds to music as being a form of worship. So we have something called...
Because it's like a higher state?
No, we have something called bhajan. We have something called kirtan, where you sing, and it's a form of worship. So like if you had to go to a temple, it's very likely that they're going to be singing or having instruments and having, we do that. I do that. It's part of my religion.
Yeah.
But I was talking about music being, but also religion is very subjective thing too, where, churches sing. You sing in a church.
Well, one of the things that struck me about that was just the way that, we associate, so that feeling you have is like a pure feeling, right? Like, and you elevate it above other emotions, right? As like a more desirable state than like anger or lust and it makes sense to me that a practice that brings about that feeling would end up getting tied into religion, because religion is ultimately that which orders the world, right? It's that which, like, I always give this example, right? Like Elon Musk builds a rocket and then it blows up in the atmosphere, right? So, okay, so there's the physical fact of what happened. It blew up, but you want it to have blown up. Okay, how do you feel now? Like that this is a good thing, right? Like you suddenly the world changes.
Yeah.
But then if you wanted to get to the moon, it's suddenly a terrible thing. Well, so the point I'm trying to get to is that so you had so there's the reality, there's like the physical world, right? And then there's like your interpretive structure, which like gives this thing like narrative structure, like with how to interpret it. Is this thing good? Is this thing bad? And I think that's what religion does, is it's a framing mechanism for you to interpret the world, right? As these things are good or bad. Yeah, because I think there's two types of knowledge in the world. You know, there's is and then there's ought.
Okay.
Right? So is like the physical descriptions of a thing. Like I could physically describe it, the is, and then ought is how I should behave, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like if I sleep with lots of people, I'm going to get an STD. This is the is. But wanting to live a life without pain, that is the ought. And so that tells you how you should navigate in response to this like action, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's maybe we'll get to go into that more, but I wanted to touch on something that I was seeing in you, in that you have this dichotomy, you know, there's got like religious, and that feels like a more of an explosive word for you, right? Like there's so much, I can just feel that we're going to open up a lid and there's all this stuff under it. And then spirituality feels like you defining yourself in opposition, you know, still trying to find meaning, you know, in this thing that is like still difficult for you, you know? That's what I was seeing.
So...
Am I on the money or...
No, you're not.
Shit. Okay. Yeah.
Let me just be brutally rude to you. I'm sorry.
No. This is how I learn, right?
I say spiritual because I believe music is a universal language.
Yes.
Religion is, for me, I would identify as a Hindu person.
Yes.
Right? For other people, I don't, but it doesn't mean that if somebody who is Christian or not Christian or somebody who doesn't believe in God, it's more universal. Just the term spiritual is a lot more universal. And like, for example, when I went to Germany, that was my first like international experience playing music. And I played in the International Youth Symphony Orchestra.
Yes.
And in that orchestra, there were I would say music students from like all over Europe. You can say there were a few like North African people. There were a couple of South African people. So it was a very diverse group of musicians. A lot of them didn't speak English. A lot of them did not have, like, there were guys who were from Syria in that orchestra who were actually refugees in Germany, who were playing in that orchestra. They did not speak English. The conductor, he had very broken English. He would speak half German, half English, and but he would be able to demonstrate with his voice, with his instruments, of what he was expecting from us. And that was a really like practical example of showing how music is universal,
and
because
like transcends the boundaries of
it
cultures.
transcended everything. And like I mean, I'm an Indian girl from Africa, so that was a little bit of I mean, I don't want to get racist, but people were shocked that they did not expect an Indian girl to come from Africa, you know. I'm saying this only because it was a step that showed me how music like unites people. That's why I use the word spirituality, because there were people who are Hindu there. Well, I was Hindu. There were people who were Muslim. Like, you know, the North African country folk were Muslim. And there were people who were like Catholic. Then you get the different types of Christian that came along from the European countries. And I mean, the language barriers, the cultural barriers were all there, you know. It's just that on the last couple of days, we did a couple of concerts, and all of those concerts were successes. Why? Because we use music as our tool to bring people together, to unify people, to bring that love for music together. And I made friends, that's why I prefer to use the word spirituality.
Right.
When it comes to music.
Yeah.
Religion is still is something that helps you sometimes with spirituality.
Yeah.
And I'm using the word sometimes because, I mean, everybody's different,
Right. So
but spirituality does, for me, is different. Is different. Well, not different. Spirituality for me is something more. It's a better terminology, I feel.
Right. So if I was to say that back to you, you tell me if I'm wrong here. I was picking up stompies, it seems like. And the truth of the matter more is that you use the word spirituality to be inclusive because you don't want to.
I don't want to say just Hindu or just Christian or just this or just that, I believe also that the basis of humankind is love, and for me, love is a religion on its own. I mean, just showing love, showing care, showing compassion.
Yeah, it's a structure.
It's a structure,
right? Yeah.
So exactly what you were saying about religion being a structure, love is a structure.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any human being who shouldn't have to conform to any other way that doesn't show love,
Yeah.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying, right?
Well, I think it sounds like what you're saying is that as long as your guiding principle is love and, there's love in your heart in your actions, so, you don't use people instrumentally, you don't try to outright hurt people, who cares
Jealousy,
how you do it?
Greed, all of that stuff.
Yeah. And then, so one of the questions I did have is, this is something I know having known you beforehand, was that you're in an interesting position, right? Like, basically I wanted to ask you about the tension of having grown up, what would we say, like, South Africa is more liberal than it was, right? That's almost hilarious to say out loud, right? Anyway, that's such an understatement. But just to say that, you have grown up in quite a conservative background, right? And I think that you're still sort of deeply proud of your heritage, right? But I know that there's got to be a tension between maybe I'm wrong. Like, is there a tension between your upbringing and what you've experienced in South Africa in terms of like what the Western, TikTok, YouTube, the kind of media we consume and the values those subscribe versus the one you sort of grew up with? And
so, I grew up in a very cultural background. Yes. So,
where did you grow up?
Durban.
Yeah.
So, for me, I have very open-minded liberal parents.
Yes.
But obviously, when society in Durban has a lot of norms, and expectations. I mean, I don't really have this kind of pressure from my parents, like, oh, go get married kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, in other cultures, in other households, it is still a thing that happens where there is a little bit of pressure, but I wouldn't say as much in my family, in my life. My parents are actually very open-minded, but we are very cultural, so we take our music very seriously, our Hindustani classical music, Indian classical music very seriously. We listen to a lot of Indian music, we listen to a lot of Bollywood is an example. We even sing Bollywood songs,
Yeah, because I've seen you've done some covers as well.
I've done a lot of Bollywood covers. And I love listening to Bollywood music. I mean, my roots, even though it's been 6 generations from the people who came from India, I still am very proud of the fact that I have an Indian heritage. I love wearing Indian clothes. I love wearing Indian jewelry. I love wearing I also dance, Indian classical dancing. I love dancing, and
it anchors you.
Yeah. It's a part of my culture, and I love Indian food. I love Indian, what else, movies.
Yeah.
I love the language. Languages are beautiful. The
Yeah.
Indian languages. So, those are the kind of things. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
That culture is in me, like to the core. It's somehow it's there.
Yeah.
And my dad's Mauritian Indian and my mom's South African Indian. So we have a little bit of like this hybrid kind of family also, where we got the Indian roots, but there's also the Mauritian culture. There's also the South African culture. South Africa, for example, biryani. You know biryani, obviously.
Yeah.
Biryani. There's a Indian biryani, there's a
Yeah.
Mauritian Indian biryani, and there's
Yeah.
a South African Indian
Yeah.
biryani. But they're all biryani, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very cultural. I
Yeah.
love Indian culture. But in terms of the like superstitious part of it, not so much.
Walk me through the superstitious part of it, right? So,
Ooh,
I mean,
okay.
I don't even know.
Now we're getting to the tea.
Well, because I think every one dude there's like crystal healing and like, dude, plug this salt rock into the wall and it'll
I have a
release
salt
off
rock at
ions.
home.
Oh no! Oh no! Carry on. Yeah.
Well, let's think. What I mean, okay, let's use an example of a wedding, right? When people get married, there's certain like rules and regulations,
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, there's a lot of it that's religious, there's a lot of it that's cultural, and then there's a lot of it that I just feel don't make sense. Like in Mauritius, for example, this is I mean, I might be saying something controversial, but this is how I feel, right? So when I went for a wedding, then they said that the single people should sleep on the floor during the wedding. And
That's just mean,
so I was like, okay, should I sleep on the floor? Should I not sleep on the floor? Should I sleep on the floor? Because there are certain members of my Mauritian family that are very cultural,
Yeah.
And
Right, so there's a tension there. I see it.
well, I mean, it's tension. I love them. It's just a different way of thinking. But for me,
I don't
I'm
mean
like,
tension between you and them. I mean a
Oh,
tension
yeah.
between principles.
oh yeah. And then so when I asked why, then that's just like, no, that's the way it is,
Yeah.
But I'm that question like person who likes asking questions, Then I thought about it, and I'm like, okay, so back in the day, then if somebody's getting married, then a whole like lot of people will come and stay over at the wedding house, and far people who live from far and close, and the wedding house is basically bustling, right?
Yeah.
So obviously the single people would probably like give up their rooms for their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents. So that's probably why they slept on the floor,
there's
right?
the history of it. Yeah, the practical reason behind the tradition, and we've completely forgotten why we do it now.
Yeah, so now it's just single people sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
if there are beds available, there are couches available, why,
Could I ask you, since we're quite deep here, I went to a very Christian school.
Yeah.
Like, they told me that, like, if I didn't go to church, like, every week or something, like, if I just missed one, I was going straight to hell.
Yeah.
Right, which was, anyway. And I found, personally, for me, was that all of them would say, no, we like questions. We like people when they ask questions. But my experience was that there was a line, it was an invisible line. If you did keep asking, people started to get really like, okay, we like questions, but stop.
Yeah.
So that was my experience.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you mirrored it as, sort of seeing like as a sort of a questioner, or did you sort of stick away from those things? Or?
I'm a questioner.
Yeah.
I am a questioner. I like to question things. I like to, there are a lot of things that it's a bit of a controversial thing, because it's like, am I disrespecting my culture by questioning things? But I still am very, sometimes I actually fall into the traps of doing stuff that don't necessarily have reason, or, and I think that, yeah, I am a questioner. I'll always be a questioner, I think, because I feel like I like to know why. And
Yeah.
sometimes you find some really interesting things.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we have a tradition. Well, people turn salt for negative energy.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things as Hindu people, Indian culture. A lot of people do that. So they just take a handful of salt and they turn it around the person like that.
Yeah.
And they say that it wards off negative energy. So when I did some research, apparently like salt has ions in it that actually like absorb negative energies. And I'm like, okay, I thought that's actually quite interesting, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to things like that, but maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like knowing also, so that I have peace of mind that I'm not doing something that's just senseless, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, no. What I was thinking about there is just that I got the sense that if you take the perspective. The point I was trying to get to essentially is like you could break the world down into just a lot of traditions, and there's stories behind like a lot of things, like even like, I don't know, I guess a toilet maybe that just doesn't like make sense. I'm not sure how well I've done there. Okay, I'm with you. Let me go to the next question. Okay, what the hell was that? Oh, you went to Paris. What was that
I
like?
did.
Yeah, when did you go and what was that like?
Okay, so I actually went on a trip, but where do I even start?
Yeah.
But I went busking.
Yeah.
I decided to busk in Paris and went to busk in London as well. So I actually had, my dad's sister lived in France, right? And she was not well, and so I really wanted to see her. And she lives in the south of France, but due to like issues, unforeseen circumstances, like I couldn't go and stay with her because she was in hospital. So I was kind of stuck. So I said, okay, let me make this into a little bit of a trip. So I went to Paris. I stayed there for a couple of days, and I went busking on the streets and just played my violin, and I played like Hindi songs, and like it was very interesting.
Did you visit any like cultural places there that were like significant in some way? Like, I don't know, like a museum of history?
I went to a few. So I'll tell you, I'm a little bit crazy, right? So on the one day, I decided, okay, let me just explore and have no plan. That was my plan, to have no plan. And I ended up stumbling across a free concert of this like harp player with an opera singer. And it was in this random building that had like gold like everywhere and mirrors everywhere. It's not like some fancy, like everyone knows the landmarks in Paris, but this was some random place, not it wasn't one of the famous ones, you know. And I just went, and there were like 30 people at the show, and I just listened and watched the concert, and it was beautiful, you know. So that was one of my experiences that was like culturally enriching, because that's apparently what they do around Europe, you know. They just have these little concerts, and people.
Did you notice anything about like the architecture of the place, of just like these very particularly like old buildings, or no, not really?
Oh yeah. Every day I used to walk around and see, because they have the date of the buildings on in Europe. So I just look and walk and see, okay, this looks like it would be the oldest building, and then it will be like 1745. And then the next day I'll see something 1686, you know?
Yeah,
so
particularly a lot of history
and
there.
a lot of history, and it's very well kept actually, you know. And and then I went for one orchestra, like free orchestra show, and in one of the, I forget the name now. It's a church, but that is where Chopin had, you know, Chopin, the pianist.
Have definitely heard of that name before.
So his funeral was there. That's what I remember of the place.
Did he not also do that funeral march? Is that Chopin? Yes.
So that location is in Paris. I hope I'm not getting this fact wrong, right? But so that venue, there was an orchestra playing there. I saw a little pamphlet when I was walking one of the days, and then I said, okay, let me go, and I watched orchestra there. So yeah, that was really interesting. And then I went to London, and
So have you
busked.
been all over Europe? Or...
I went to Germany, Paris, France, and I went to London. And yeah, that's about it for now. I've been to France a few times because I had family there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, the London thing was actually a very spontaneous plan because, see, I have a Mauritian passport, so I didn't need a Schengen visa or the British visa, right? So yeah, it was really fun because I just decided to go, and I went, I took a bus from Paris to London, so that was very, very fun. And then I went busking in Piccadilly Circus and Trafalgar Square and stuff.
What is busking like? Like the actual
The
experience of it? Yeah.
Well, these people who busk there on a daily basis, they do it as a job. Like, that's what they do. That's where they get their money. That's where they get their bread and butter. You know?
Did you plan to do this? You're like, I'm going to go there.
I just wanted.
When you arrived.
I wanted to do it, mainly because it was always on my bucket list, right?
Yeah.
And I just said, okay, you know what? Let me just take my instrument, pull it and play it, open it and play it, and that's what I did. Also, I had support from a few people because one of the guys who played, who is a busker there, so I actually met up with one of our family friends in London on the day, and she was very, very nice, and she asked the guy, can I borrow his sound system to do a little piece with a mic and sound,
Yeah.
And yeah, I did that, and
Shit, I would have been so nervous to do something like
that was in Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I was so happy. Oh my god,
Yeah.
there were people that came and watched, and there were quite a few people because I was playing mostly Bollywood covers because that's who I am, right? I love Bollywood, and I feel like, you know what, let me just play
you want to perform from your strengths.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, so there's a question here sort of leading, we'll eventually get there maybe, is just so then cultural differences in compared to your experiences in South Africa versus London, or were you just not there long enough to sort of see anything there?
Cultural differences. You see, places like Paris, London, even when I went to New Zealand, those were very, very diverse cultures, diverse places, because these are cities where people immigrate to work. In London, there were a lot of Indian people coming to watch. There were a lot of, I mean, that's the culture of those places, right? They're not exclusively just Frenchmen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get that in the big cities. But then when I went to Germany, that was a very small town. So there were a lot of cultural differences that that I noticed. For example, whatever. Let me think of a nice example of a cultural difference. It was very cold, right, in Germany.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people there indulge in alcohol, very openly, And in growing up, I came from a family where alcohol is frowned upon,
Yeah. So you do to this day no drinking.
So I don't drink, right?
Yeah.
But that's a personal choice, right? But I found that the youngsters indulged in alcohol because of the cold. That's what they told me. They're like, it's cold. We need alcohol to keep us warm,
Yeah.
So I went at this in November-ish. So it was winter, getting into winter, and yeah, I understand why that's the culture, and that's the way. I mean, even in France, there's a different culture of eating cheese every day.
Yeah.
That's the way they do it.
Yeah.
In France, they have black coffee. They don't put milk in their coffee.
Yeah.
Those are small little things, but those were the cultural differences. But it's so interesting. I find it so fascinating.
The reason
so interesting.
I was asking that is because I wanted to lead into just what your experience has been with. Okay, so we all exist online, right? And that's dominated by Western culture and values, right?
Right.
And I was thinking that maybe if we took a look at Europe, there might be something interesting there. But so now, what has your experience been with? What has your experience been just the intersection between your values and then the values that you see expressed through Western media?
Oh, through Western media.
Yeah, you know.
I think media is a little bit of a tough one because maybe it is a Western influence, but I think it's a global thing now.
Yeah.
Everyone is on social media. Everyone listens to podcasts. Everyone watches TikTok.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's part of culture worldwide. I think that's actually one of the tools that have been used to unify the world.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something that's a Western thing only.
Well, what I mean specifically is like with woke culture, you know, like there's a particular value system that gets pushed out there, which is very much like a girl boss sort of a thing. Where what's like say the role of women, let's say, in Hindu culture typically?
Role of women in Hindu culture. We worship a feminine form of God.
Yeah.
We have quite a few actually, and each of them represent different things. So the woman in Hindu culture should be, Hindu religion should be respected. You know, it's just that over time there were certain things in Indian culture that kind of didn't agree with that, you know.
Well, I meant specifically because what we've spoken about a little bit earlier was just so you've spoken how with your parents they've never really pushed you to do the whole get a husband thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you mentioned that in the culture, I imagine in the same way you feel like there's a bit of like an air or a pressure, in the same way that I feel that I have to like succeed or provide, you know, as like a man, right? There's like these hidden things in a culture that sort of are these expectations, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd say sort of with more Western culture, there's a definitely like a rebellion against that.
Yeah.
You know, to those traditional roles, let's say, right? And I wanted to ask just, has that been something that you've had to grapple with?
Yes.
Yes. And okay, so what was that like?
So I feel like when I think about my direct family, they're very open-minded, very they're not as like, you know, you push your daughter in a certain way to do certain things in a, you know, it's not like that with my family, right? But I've seen it with external people. Like when sometimes I've heard people, well, the get married thing is, I get it from people who are not my family, you know, people who are, especially the older folk, you know?
Yeah.
And I think growing up in South Africa, though, it's a little bit different because now the culture is not
you
like
mean say
that.
compared to Mauritius?
Compared to Mauritius and compared to India as well.
Yeah.
The culture is different here. A lot of, I mean, education is a big thing.
Well, like I don't expect you to get it like perfect, by the way. Just more like your experience. of it.
My experience also is. So when I have family in Mauritius and I have like a lot of influence of Indian culture, right?
Yeah.
So my family in Mauritius, they are a little bit more conservative. I would definitely say that. The women are treated a little bit differently. I mean, I wouldn't say they're treated badly. I would never say that. But there is like a little bit of a culture shock when it comes to me, you know, because I am an independent girl, you know, and for them sometimes it's not that they're not like accepting of that, but they're more, it's like where lifestyles don't match. Like my family kind of we have a little bit of a joint family kind of a situation, and I don't think I would be able to do that. You know, I
What do you mean, be able to do what?
Live in a joint family, get married and live in a joint family, you
okay,
know?
I see what you mean by a joint family.
Yeah, so my family in Mauritius, everybody lives together. Everybody, I mean, they have their own space, yes, like, but there are a lot of people in one yard, you know? And I love that about them because they can do it,
But it's
and
not
they're
what
doing it.
you would want to do.
I think that it's phenomenal that they can do it with and still keep peace, you know. But personally, I don't think I would be able to do it. I like space. I like having my own space, you know. And I think women of in India, I'm saying the more traditionalist, like the villages of India, it's still, women are treated differently, and maybe, and I think the influence of social media is changing things. I notice now, like with all the newer Hindi movies that release, there's always like a sense of feminism coming through.
Yes,
It's always happening.
Yeah.
And I think it will make a difference, which is why social media is actually important. It actually can be a tool to empower people. I mean, any conversation done in a very pragmatic, almost like in a way that makes sense, you know. It can click to somebody that, hey, why should I treat my sister like this? Why should I treat my wife like this? Why should I treat my mother like this, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't, that whole thing of being a feminist is becoming a little bit.
Would you describe yourself as a feminist, or like where would you place yourself on that?
I think I'm a feminist because I believe in equality, but I'm not a feminist where I think that women are superior to men.
Yeah, yeah. Like you're a reasonable feminist, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I believe that if I want to do something, it doesn't mean because I'm a girl I shouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I think I lived by that even with my music life.
Do you think that came from so do you think it first came from your parents, or do you think, because one could conceptualize that idea as being a Western idea, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So where did it come from?
My parents, yes.
Yeah.
Because my parents were very, very, I mean, they let me travel and do whatever I want with my music. I mean, I was doing orchestra courses from a very young age, and I mean, they let me do whatever I wanted. I live away from them now, you know. I have my own life, I have my own job, they don't put any restriction on me when it comes to achieving my goals, and they never undermine my goals because I'm a girl. And but I've been told after a performance, say that, it's such a pity that you're your dad's daughter, and you're not going to be able to take his name forward. I've been told that. I've been, for a girl, you played really well. What the hell? I'm like, that's very offensive to me, you know. For a girl, you play very well.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that because if I was a guy, it would be okay that I played well, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't
even know where that's coming from. Like that's such a left field thing. Is it a genuine? So does that person genuinely expect that only males are good musicians? Is like,
it's, you know, let me be honest. When I go to, there's a lot of like Bollywood shows that come down from India, right?
Yeah.
I think I've seen like 3 women musicians. Well, I'm not talking about the main singer, but I'm talking about the musicians.
Yeah.
It's mostly men. And that's probably where it's coming from, because why are the girls not allowed to travel with these big tour groups?
Right.
Or, you know?
Yeah, so this is interesting, because you had to encounter in Germany a cultural practice that was sort of counter your own culture, right?
Yeah.
And then here is a reversal of that scenario.
Where your own culture is different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And how would you like navigate that?
I would stick to my gut, stick to what I believe in, do what I want, because I believe that this world is not what it used to be. We are so free now. People can do what they want, be who they want, and why should it be any different, you know?
What would you say to, like, if you had to steelman the opposition side here, which is like something like maybe a preservation of culture, something like that? What would you say to that if you had to steelman their side of them?
So, like, you mean if I was on the side of who? Though?
Oh, sorry. So right now I would say you're leaning more on like the liberal side of things, right? You're more on the like freedom. I want to have self-determination, be able to do what I want, right?
Yeah.
Where the other side is more like a conservative. These are these established roles. We need to stay in these roles.
Yeah.
possibly because it makes us safe to be in these roles.
Yeah.
And if you had to steelman that position, like why do people feel that way? What would you say?
Like kind of justify what?
Yeah, steelman. Are you familiar with steelman versus strawman? So strawman is like, I build a shit representation of your argument and then I attack that one.
Yeah.
Well, let me not think of an example, but just, you misrepresent the person's argument and the idea is to just destroy it. Whereas a steelman is you represent the argument in a way that the other party would be happy with.
So if I had to kind of justify
where do you think it's coming from?
That's a tough one because I think people just don't know any better sometimes. Because when I think about India in like back in the day, the women were the providers, the men were the workers.
Yeah.
And that's
right,
how...
You mean like the cooking aspect of nourishment?
Like nourishment. You cook and you take care of your household. I mean, my grandmother didn't have like she didn't go to work, right? But she took care of her kids. She used to sew. So that was her side hustle, you can say. But my grandfather went to work,
Yeah.
I've seen that they are they were also liberal, but prior to their generation, the woman never got educated even, because they had to provide. My granny had to leave school at a certain point because she had to take care of her brothers and sisters. My granny in Mauritius also, she worked, but she worked in the sugarcane fields because they were indentured laborers. But that's it's a little bit of a tough one because sometimes they just don't know any better. And I think sometimes I might even fall into that category because I just don't know any better, But like I would not do certain things because I just feel like, okay, that I don't know whether my parents would be happy about it,
I have to add to that, like I'm also not entirely sure either, right? But one of the things I have noticed is, I mentioned it a little earlier. When you're younger, you inhabit the world.
Yeah.
Like it is a created thing that you move into.
Yeah.
Well, when you're older, you become more... So for one, you become responsible for the structures that people then come to inhabit.
Yeah.
Right? So like if you're going on a hike and you see as a young person, like a 20-year-old, you walk through and you're like, cool, that was a nice hike.
Yeah.
But then as the old bloke who owns the place, you're the guy who maintains the pathway. You're the guy who put up the bird hide. You're the guy who's dammed the lake and so on. And you've shaped the world more. So I think you become attached to the way it is. So that's like one reason, I think, right? Yeah. You've just shaped the world, so you become less likely or less willing to like let go of it.
Yeah.
A second reason is a psychological one. I think as we age, we get less able to cope with new information.
Yeah.
Like with my granny, she's like totally unable to understand. She can understand things, but you know what I mean. She's not. I have to explain like internet and how a remote works, and she gets lost in a phone and so on. Yeah. So literally less able to perceive new information.
But that's the part that I think that is a little bit of a flaw in society, because it doesn't mean you can't process that new information because you're old. My granny is great on WhatsApp. She's great on YouTube. She's on Facebook, and she knows how to wish people for their birthdays on Facebook, So, and she's in her 70s, but so that it doesn't mean that she's not able to process information.
Yeah,
it's just a little bit more difficult.
Maybe you get like some part of it as well as I think you just get less willing to learn new information, because 99% of all the information is completely useless and wrong, right?
Oh yeah.
Right, just like or not relevant, let's say. Like the particular makeup of this board behind me isn't, what's the use learning all the facts about that particular thing?
Yeah.
So look, I think there's a tension here, because on the one hand, there's the classic story, and we touched on it as well. Is like there's a room, it's filled with monkeys, and there's a banana on top of a ladder. Are you familiar with this psychological experiment? Okay, so I'll explain it to you. There's a room, ladder, banana on top.
Yeah.
Right, and whenever a monkey tries to climb the ladder, all of the monkeys in the entire enclosure get sprayed with not high pressure water, they're not like scoring away skin or something like that, but unpleasant.
Yeah.
And so what eventually happens is that whenever a monkey tries to climb up this ladder, all of the monkeys drag him down and then, do what for, right? So that they don't get sprayed. And then slowly but surely they switch out monkeys.
Yeah.
Right? Until you arrive at a point where the monkey, no single monkey in the room has experienced the consequences of climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
None of them know why they don't do this.
Yeah.
Right? And so then you can see that, like, oh, this is the same sort of a pathway. Like what was the thing you mentioned? It was with the sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
Was an example of this, right? But then the advantage of doing that is, like, from a survival perspective, if everyone just does what everyone else does, then you don't need to constantly expend resources to learn the same lesson.
Yeah.
Let's say, like, Garp goes up and pokes a bear, he got eaten. Okay, guys, we don't need to keep repeating this experiment every generation. Let's stay away from the bear.
Yeah.
But then the problem there is that sometimes you end up with something that should be updated but isn't. And so I think there's a natural tension.
That's what I'm saying. They just don't know any better. That's exactly what happens when it comes to certain societies.
Yeah.
Where, especially when it comes to women, like the way women were treated, and that's what's good about social media, because it can break those things. It can break those barriers of changing. There must be change, and the problem is that some people just don't want to change either. And I think that's a societal problem that, I mean, how much can we do about it? We can only control our own emotions and our own feelings and our own lives. But it doesn't mean now that because somebody else has certain opinions and that it's wrong,
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think that, but I do think that there's, as young people, we have a tendency to, I think every generation likes to change, right?
Yeah.
Change what happens before. I think you see this in the TikTok generation, a Gen Z.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can see this in every young generation. The new lingo that emerges.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's got, it's lit fam one week and now it's no cap, and you're like, what the hell? And so every generation tries to differentiate itself from the previous one because you want to have your own identity and be different. So youth means change in some ways, right? So I think we're relatively young, we're not 19, 20 anymore.
Yeah.
But so there's a bias there, tending to take that which is any change as good.
Yeah.
Right? But also I think we're both very familiar with the other side of things, which is like this rigid, nothing changes, no discussion, right? And that's also wrong, right? And there needs to be some sort of a dialogue between those things to get to something healthy, let's say.
Yeah, agreed, completely.
And so one of the things that So this is I don't even know how to get this across. I just know it's like such a sad fact or a depressing fact. Anyway, one of the effects of women working, right, is that you double the workforce, so you double supplies, so you devalue labor. And so one of the things that happens there, as opposed to having a single income household, you now have to have a dual income household to maintain the same
standard of living. And I have two sisters. I love them, and I also know in my heart that I think it is a good thing. Yeah. That the world has changed from what it was. In this day and age, it's very difficult. Like when there are children involved. Yeah. It's not as easy as before, where you can just live on one salary. School fees are expensive, Children are expensive, But that being said, there are a lot of single earning households that are still running perfectly fine, So
look, I hear you. It's just to say that grappling with the natural consequences of a viewpoint,
Yeah.
right? And realizing that nothing is ever so black and white,
Yeah.
right? And you can have multiple ways. So I've been asking you a lot about like the conflict between one's culture and then the culture of something else,
Yeah.
right? And how people navigate between
Yeah.
these differences, right?
Yeah.
And one of the, I mean, this is for Germany. What I felt from you is that you basically, the way you decided to resolve that is you were respectful, right?
Yeah.
But also uncomfortable, I imagine.
I don't think I was uncomfortable. I was just like, hey, this is different.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Right.
I still see that
I would feel
with my
uncomfortable.
Mauritian family
Yeah.
and my South African family. The Mauritian life versus the South African life. There's a lot of differences. But for me, it's like, let me take what I like from the culture and let me leave what I don't like from the culture.
Yeah.
Because I have opinions. Not everybody needs to know that I like or dislike things. Doesn't mean that they're doing things wrong.
Yeah.
It's just that this is my life. I will choose what I want to take from a conversation or from an experience. For example, in Mauritius, I love the food. I love the way people are so together. They're so unified there, and they're so proudly Mauritian. They're so patriotic. I love that. But at the same time, unified meaning joint family. That's a little bit tough.
Yeah, so it's I think you do that's the right of it, right? You take what you love and you choose to propagate more of that into the world. You leave behind what you don't like, and then we just do that over and over and over into the future, you know?
Yeah, and I like to share my experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to share what I am learning in life, and maybe they can take what they want from my experiences, and they can take and leave what they don't like from my experiences. You know, it's a choice, and I think that's a very we live in a world that is like that. It happens not just between countries, but between people on a daily basis, you know. I mean, there's a lot of difference between you and me and our upbringing, you know. So I will take what I like. I mean, there's nothing really I don't like, but I'm just saying, I don't have to copy the way you love, you live, you know, your lifestyle, you know. You don't have to copy my lifestyle, you know.
I agree with all of that, right? But and so there's nothing I disagree about that. But
Right.
I think the picture becomes more complicated when you take into account that everyone still has to live together, right?
Yeah.
And so, because then you arrive at situations where, like, you get incommensurate value structures that can't work together,
Yeah.
right? And then there's like practical reasons. I remember my granny was angry that the president didn't acknowledge a particular religious holiday.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, if he spent all day like announcing all the religious holidays every day, we'd never get to the bloody speech. You know what I mean? You take what you take the parts of the culture that you like.
Yeah.
You take the parts of the culture that you don't like, right?
Yeah.
But sorry about this. I need to formulate it correctly.
Right.
But the problem is that works on like an individual level, right? But not on a
Right.
cultural level when we have to
Not a
interact.
societal level.
Yeah, because the people who view alcohol one way have to live next to the people who don't view
Yeah,
it
but it
another
doesn't
way.
mean that because my German friends drank
Yeah.
alcohol that now I was like, why are you drinking alcohol?
Yeah.
No, hell no.
Yeah.
You know, that's not how it works. That's not how. As long as people are not being hurt in the process,
Yes.
I think I accept it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I need to also do it like that, but it doesn't mean that I have to disregard people or tell people that this is wrong. I don't need to impose my opinions on people. And I think that it's like that with anyone. Like I would accept that this is the way you live your life. You be you, you do you. But I'm not going to hurt somebody because it doesn't align with what I was brought up with what I believe, you know? So on a societal level, if everybody is respectful in that sense, then why would society not work? You know?
I know what you're saying, but I think when you get to the legislative level, when like the rubber hits the road, right?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
different now because that's law now. What are you gonna do? You know?
Well, a law in effect is a culture's value structures inscribed into like stone,
Yeah.
right? And so something like South Africa, which is like we recognize like five
Like
different
our
types
drinking
of-
age is
Yeah.
18 here.
Yeah.
In Europe, it's 16.
Yeah, but in like a predominantly, let's say, Hindu culture, there might not even be a drinking age. We might just ban alcohol altogether. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think it's banned in India, but in a lot of
Right,
Islam countries, it's banned.
Yes.
You
yeah.
you can't drink alcohol in
And then
in
so
one of those
what
countries.
happens is at the legislative level, right? Like if you have those two cultures coexisting,
Yeah.
right now alcohol isn't banned here.
But isn't that
right?
like the cause of so many wars?
Like
in
alcohol
this-
being
I mean,
bad.
not alcohol, but I'm saying
Yes.
the fact. I mean, India and Pakistan, they were one nation at one point,
Yes.
and it was due to religion that the conflict was just too much, and they had to split.
Yeah.
You know, so Pakistan, a lot of the Muslim culture had to literally migrate there.
Yeah.
And is that fair? I don't know.
Well,
But
yeah.
to maintain almost like a homeostasis kind of a thing, maybe that's why it happened. I mean, they're still at war with each other all the time, but it doesn't. I understand why it happened. You know.
Look, yes, I agree, right? Like, I think you're arriving at the same place as I've arrived
Yes.
to, right? It's like, okay, so a lot of the time when we fight wars is when we can't actually agree with the other party, right? Where the value structures become incommensurate.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that because we live in South Africa, where there's like 17,000 cultures all coming together, right? And it seems historically that, like, this has like never happened, right? We live in
Yeah.
like a historical time, right?
Yeah.
We have all these cultures mixing together, and we
Yeah.
have no idea like how to get along, but we have to get along.
Yeah.
So like rainbowism, as let's say, it's like
Yeah.
we're founded on this dream that everyone can get
Yeah.
together. But it seems like the natural tendency is for people to drift apart. We
Yeah.
end up in our small communities. But I also really, really hate that.
Yeah.
I really don't like that. And I'm trying to figure out if this multicultural experiment is doomed, you know, or...
And let me get back to this. That is why things like music is so
That's
so
such
powerful.
a good point, dude. Yeah.
It's powerful, Hamish. You don't understand how I've seen it. But
Yeah.
I've seen I can connect on a musical level to so many people without knowing anything about them. And should that matter? Like at the end of the day, we all have blood running through our veins, you know, we're all human. But the appreciation of the arts almost can be a very universal thing. And so we just need to use things like that to our advantage to kind of coexist. And sometimes if you have no commonality with people, I mean, at the end of the day, that's why I'm saying it's the more intangible things that can actually unite people.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, do you get what I'm saying, right?
No, I understand you. You're saying essentially
Maybe
that
not on a political level, but yeah, on a social level for sure.
the best, well, you appeal to people's shared humanity, right?
Yeah.
And then I think another thing you can do is you can just point to the absolute hell, which is what happens when we don't get that right, you know, the war, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, the best I've been able to do, right, in terms of like, if you have two people who sort of are fundamentally different, right, the best
Yeah.
I've been able to think of is dialogue. Both parties have to be willing to change a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know if we really do that on a cultural level, on like but but I agree. Just shared humanity, and music can be a vehicle for that.
Music
Right.
can. I believe that
Yeah.
it can. And I mean, if it's not, then something there must be. We are all human. We go through the same things. Like we all try our best to provide for our families.
We're more the same than we are different.
I mean, culturally we're different,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that we're not experiencing the same struggles of life or the same I mean, the good things too, right? I mean, I have friends at work who are very different to me but how do we connect with each other? You know, one guy will be going through something bad with his girlfriend, and now suddenly we're all best friends, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because suddenly, like, love, emotions, pain, that's something that everyone experiences, right?
Yeah.
You know, so the emotional part, like in music we have something called ras is emotion.
Yeah.
And you can relay in like emotion through the arts, right? And not just music. I'm talking about music, dance, drama, poetry. I mean, even a simple dialogue sometimes is you're touching into emotions, right? Emotions are the basis of most conversations.
Yeah.
So that's something that unifies us, I suppose, because all of us get angry when there's load shedding or irritated when there's load shedding, you know? All of us get happy when you see a little, like,
Child walking
little
on.
child,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. That's
all of
happy
us,
and well cared for.
yeah.
Yeah.
All of us get I mean, that's what the Rus word kind of imbibes. We all have that disgust feel, like, you know. So emotion is a unifying thing, actually.
I think that's really beautiful, Shruti. You know, like you speak about performance,
Yeah.
and you have experienced a lot of different cultures.
Yeah.
You know, you've been all over the world,
Yeah.
and for you, your thing is living with like love and unity, right?
Yeah.
And like we're more the same than we are different.
Yes.
And we can unite across this piece of art.
Yes.
Yeah. And that, yeah, I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's I think a good like place to go to when you have this issue of difference.
So then,
Yeah.
Shruti, where do you see yourself in like 5 years? If you were to do like perfectly what you get to live your potential paradise in like 5 years, where does that put you?
See, I have been asked this kind of question before, but
Damn it.
I
Yeah.
I never have a proper reply, and that is because I feel like I'm the kind of person who likes to live in the moment, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I do stress about the future a lot, maybe a bit too much, but I don't like to plan too much anymore, because I feel like when I do plan too much, then I don't want to be disappointed, you know? Or I don't want to like hype myself up and then let it not happen. Because it's happened before where I wanted to study music and I didn't get in, you know? It was damn disappointing.
Yeah, the
But-
problem with specifying a goal is you can fail, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be something you just tick off in your life.
Yeah.
But ideally, if I had to like think about 5 years' time, okay, I want to be healthy, I want to be happy, and I want to be like immersed in music. If I ideally had a situation, I just want to be like touring the world, playing music.
Yeah.
Like that sounds so like lame, but yeah, I don't think I see myself being doing anything more than music. Yeah. So maybe that's a 5 years.
And
yeah.
if you were to give advice to your, younger self or someone,
Younger self,
yeah, what would you say?
probably be in the moment, girl. Like that's what
Yeah.
I would tell myself.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. You
Yeah.
are. I mean, I think I should actually be telling myself this right now, because sometimes I go to work and I'm like, oh, I could have been practicing at home, or I could have been composing something new, or I could have been working on a new project, or
Yeah.
I could have,
Yeah.
But sometimes I actually need to realize, hey, you know what? This moment is actually really. Time is an important thing. Time is like, at this moment, we're doing this podcast. It's great, right? I mean, it's something that that you are working towards, that I feel like this is a great conversation to have, with another person who's kind of willing to learn my wavelength of things in life, So that's why it's a good moment. Why should I be thinking about, okay, tonight, later, what should I do? Should I do that? Should I do this? I think that's what the advice that I'd give my past self and my present self, even.
Just to be more in the moment.
To be in the moment.
Moment present.
And if something happens, it happens. If something doesn't happen,
It doesn't
It
happen.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
There's a
So
reason.
I mean, I relate to that really heavily. I found a diary of mine that I had in high school, like in
Okay.
grade 8, and I'd write little things down, and I got the impression from reading this, so I was like talking to a past self in a way,
Yeah.
just seeing a version of me,
Yeah.
and I felt a lot of love for that person in a sort of paternal sense, because I saw how scared he was.
Yeah.
I saw how nervous, and he just had to figure everything out. He had to, whenever he said something, and then I'd write like a paragraph. It's just like this complete, utter like ADD with impulsivity. So I'd get like an idea, and I'd just like keep writing. I'd write and write and write, and I just got the sense from that, like, dude, it's okay, brother.
Yeah.
Like, just relax, man.
I think that's how I am now a little bit too, because
Yeah.
I suddenly like have these bouts of like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, and life is short,
Dude.
Somebody else is like dying, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna die,
Dude, but that's the thing, right? Is it's like I could only have that experience to, relating to myself. It's like a temporary thing.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm still fundamentally that bloke.
Yeah.
I'm still the guy.
Yeah.
Whenever I get stressed out, it's like, so in some ways it's like you just get a moment of like standing outside yourself, looking back
Yeah.
and like, I'm always going to be like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And maybe just to go back, maybe that's why people you become less likely to change because you accept who you are. It's like,
Sometimes accepting who you are is actually one of the most difficult things to do, and it's sometimes a little bit out of your own comfort zone, because sometimes you're trying to conform to doing everything the way the book is prescribing it, so like I think for me personally, I am a musician even if I'm a pharmacist, and sometimes I have to reaffirm myself to saying that even though I don't do it all the time, I'm not a full-time musician. But it doesn't mean that because I work a day job and only spend my evenings playing music that I'm not a musician, you know? Life is also it's not a linear road.
yeah.
And at every point, you're going to experience things that are not necessarily... Like right now, I do have emotions sometimes where I'm like, should I quit my job and just like be music,
Dude, this and
just
like
do music.
Yeah.
I have this emotion all the time, and maybe one day I will do it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's wrong. Maybe last year itself, I was like, hell no, I'm not quitting my job to do music. But now I'm feeling this way,
Yeah.
So that's why what I say, life is not linear. Maybe after 5 years, maybe after 3 years, maybe after a month, things change, emotions change, feelings change,
I mean, you asked about it, before we started the podcast, you asked why.
Yeah,
I
why
started it.
are you
I
starting?
hadn't
How'd you
actually
start?
answered you
No.
in there. And you mirrored it a lot as well, just like through the conversation when we were talking about it, is this like everyday experience of like the average person, is that we encounter the world, but it's like limited in ways. Like a lot of decisions are like already made for us, right? Like where you've been born, right? Like the amount of money your family has.
Who are your family?
Like the fact that we're born into a society where the electricity is sort of failing all the time, and we're not doing so well on like the global political thing. We're not doing awfully, but I'm so out of my depth to make a comment there.
Yeah.
Never mind, rescind it.
Yeah.
But if you look like someone like Saudi Arabia, which controls the world's oil supply, that's what I mean. Like they have much bigger of a swing. We don't have like anyway. Just going back to the point that like
we can't control certain things.
And you have to sort of never like you think to yourself like when you're young, oh, I'm going to be special, right? Like I'm going to be president, or I'm going to be astronaut, or I'm going to be a
rock star.
Yes. I'm going to be a world-leading musician. And I'm going to be the guy who finally figures out the brain, something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's not that you give up on the dreams, right? Because I think that would be the sort of the death of you.
I don't know if you agree with me, Hamish,
Yeah.
but do your dreams also change? Like your goals in life, your dreams? Because for me, as I grew, my goals, my dreams kind of changed. I don't know. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I said it before, and it really was like not here, but I've said it before and it resonated with me because it gave me comfort. It's like, do not hang yourself by the noose of past expectation. You know,
Yeah.
so because you can like, so I'm not sure if I got it perfectly the last time I spoke about this, but essentially, you have to have a relationship with your past self to move forward into the
Right.
future. And that relationship with your past self is like, I went to varsity. These are the things. And so I become the product of that past experience. And it pushes you down like a route already, right? Because I think as you age, you expend potential in exchange for actuality.
Yeah.
When you're young, you can be all these things. When you're old, you are things.
Yeah.
And then it's not to say that you can't change, but it's like you've got so much less time to do it when you're 85, you know, right? Like, so you, and so if you completely ignore your past decisions, you're alienating a past version of yourself, right? Like that's put in so much effort for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
I also kind of grapple with that. Like, because
Yeah.
if I had to, I'm being like honest here. Sometimes I'm like, I spent so much time studying pharmacy.
Yeah.
I got a master's degree, you know. I mean, you also studied a lot. And you understand me when it's like, oh, but now if I do this, then am I like insulting my past self? You
Yeah.
know, is that an insult, you know?
Yeah, and oh god, yeah. Like for me, I was very cynical, and I've slowly been working on that because I realized it had destroyed everything I'd ever done of value. I was destroying anything I'd ever done of value, right? Because the degree, it didn't matter. Why? Because the institution was flawed, and the one, you know, do you know what I mean? And this is a corrupt thing, and I'm just a number. And then I'm like 8 years deep in this corrupt thing,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
Hamish, what really then? Because it
No,
seems you
why
just
do
hate
I
whatever you
completely,
do.
I
you know?
completely get you. I get you
Yeah.
1000%. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
you. That's how I go. I also feel the same way. I mean, not just about my education, but a lot of things in life doesn't mean because I played at the back of the orchestra in certain orchestra experiences. I wasn't at the forefront, but now suddenly I'm like not validating that as an orchestra experience. But
Yeah.
hey, I worked hard. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that I was there, doesn't that mean anything? And sometimes for my own self, I constantly like do this to myself. Yeah, very deep.
Dude, I'm so with you because it's like, it's like, okay, yes, the world's corrupt. Okay, yes, is everybody perfect? It's like, is this the peak orchestra experience?
Yeah.
No, but at the same time, it's like, well, first off, I understand why the voice is there, right? Because the voice is there to push you to do new things, to
Yeah.
keep you trying, because the world's always changing on you,
Yeah.
man. And it's like, if you know, if I can be rude, if you spend all day masturbating, after like 40 years, you will be the product of that. Which is think of a dude who did nothing but that for 40 years. You want to meet that guy?
Nope.
You want to be around that person? No, thank you.
No.
Please, no. He's sweaty, he's smelly, and he wants to tell you about his card collection. You know. Anyway, sorry. But you are the product of the things you do, right? So I understand why the voice is there, because it pushes you to change and do new things. But also at the same time, like, I'm losing myself a little bit here. Like,
Why are you doing the podcast?
yeah, oh wow, bugger, that's where we were? Okay, so I want to finish more with like the cynical voice, and it's just to say that like, the way I've found to be able to just take joy in something is to stop expecting so much of myself, and to try and treat myself like I would a sister or a mother or something. Like if I think about my sister, it's like, geez, would I attack her in the way I attack myself?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I would be a moose asshole if I was to treat anyone in my life like that.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this has got the way I think is like you treat yourself. And the interesting part is like when you treat yourself like that, I think you don't just accept anything then, right?
Yeah.
It's like if your sister started to, or your family member fell into like drugs or something like that, like a drug abuse. It's not like, oh, love, I just accept that.
Yeah.
No, it's like there's still this like this growth aspect in there. It's this love aspect.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and I think where it's like you accept the person where they're at, and you sort of remove these weights of like you have to be like totally perfect, man.
Yeah.
You know.
And you know what? Nobody likes them as perfect. My mom always tells me that, and she's like, why do you try and be the best? Why do you, I mean, sometimes I put too much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I mean, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to mess up. And you know what? From messing up, you learn a lot too.
Yeah,
you would.
so much.
It's pointless if we're gonna be doing grade 1 exams for the rest of our lives. We're gonna be staying in grade 1.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll pass with flying colors. We'll top the class.
Yeah.
But we're gonna be in grade 1, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm just imagining like a 56-year-old playing like grade 1 guitar, being like really snobby about it to the other like 8-year-olds.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
I can play guitar.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Grade 1, it goes up to grade 8. Like, just I want to make sure we're at the.
I'm even talking about life, not just
Yeah.
grade 1 as in grade 1 music. Or
Yeah.
grade,
No, I know what you're saying. You've got to keep. Improving.
Yeah, but we do
Anyway.
go up to grade 8. Just
So
by the
why
way.
did I do the podcast? I did it because. So one, I was really afraid of doing it. I know I love people. I love talking to people. Can I be real here? I feel like we were able to touch on it like for a little bit. I don't know if we were able to hold on to it for the whole. I think we got it, we lost it, and then we got it again. Whatever the fuck that was, right? Whatever that thing was that we had briefly, that is like a drug to me, you know? Because I think it's real. It's changing. It is changing in that we are both changing. Is the result. I'm learning so much, right? And I think dialogue is sacred because we touched on it a little bit.
Yeah.
With
Emotion and
culture clashes, and it's like, okay, how if we're all so different, and if it goes too far and we don't talk to each other, then we get alienated, we get into these all little groups, and then eventually we kill each other. And it's like, okay, so that's hell. And that's real. That, you know, it feels, I feel like I need to have suffered more to have this opinion. You know, like I need to be coming from Ukraine and be like, you know, so now I'm like, so in some ways I don't feel like this opinion, I deserve it, you know, but I do really feel strongly that if you don't talk to people, if you don't engage, if you don't participate in the world, then you shrink, you become smaller, you become isolated.
But that moves on. That's a very big thing we spoke about, where you look at what they can connect on rather than what are the differences.
Yes. Like,
so that's basically the point of your podcast is kind of very sacred, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So the more, I mean, it was interesting because the moment I made the first one, the world shifted, right? And we also touched on this with like how religion shapes the world. But religion is your value structure. Religion is what you find important.
Yeah.
So the moment I started doing this, heaps of jealousy for every podcast I saw with like 100,000. And I'm like, dude, you didn't start this to be super successful. You started this because you have a love of talking to people and a love of connection.
And to share that.
Yeah.
With other people.
Yes. And just so...
Because, I mean, we could have had this conversation with our...
Yeah, with
like
your warm water and my bedazzling my balls tea.
Yeah, but the fact that we can share that is you can say vehicle to open up other opinions. I mean, people can read into our conversation, or they can just take it as it is and take what they want, leave what they don't want.
Yeah, and I also just want, I mean, from a selfish level, to grow stronger. Because I think I get exposed to new ideas and, yeah, man, fuck yeah. If I can build that into my life in some way, like you build music into your life, then I think I will be 10% happier, you know? And, so I do hope this thing becomes... Okay. So I love talking to people. I want to build that into more life. And I'm also, for the longest time, the reason I didn't start is I was fucking terrified, man, of
the world, because
you inviting the world in.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's a small audience now, it's like you have seen throughout this how ignorant I am in so many ways, right? Like of music, of culture, of the world.
Aren't we all though?
Yeah. But is to say that a person who hates you right? And there's certainly no shortage of angry people on the internet who hate you no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care about this sort of, you know, the
I've
steel
had
man
hate
versus straw
comments.
man? That's what I mean. The straw man is the guy who is like, you're like, man, I really, the point I made about, here's this hidden trap underneath feminism, which is this, it's like, the hidden trap was the two household thing, right?
Yeah.
And you made a good point that I might be wrong about that. Like,
Yeah.
I should go, as I said it, I was like, I should really have double checked that before I espoused that opinion, that you double it, because it's a principle, but it doesn't mean it's right. Like, just because something makes sense doesn't make it right.
Right.
Anyway, so you can imagine I say that point. I say the point about, like, if you double the supply, if you double the supply, you decrease the value of labor, right? I could say that point and someone would be like, oh, so you hate women, you know? That's the straw man,
Yeah.
right?
Well, hate comments. I mean, I've experienced
Oh my
quite a
God,
few.
yes, and I wanted to ask you about, like, your viral video, man. Like, and what that's. Well, yeah, because that's you really saw, like, the torrent of. I mean, like, the torrent of that is the internet.
Yeah.
You know.
So I mean, I've had a few hate comments, but somehow
God, okay.
I can't. If you have to, like, stalk me, I don't even know which videos. Yeah, sorry.
Do you want to not talk about the viral video? Because I got the vibe that you were like, no, or like,
Oh
let's
no!
not go there. Or...
Okay. No, that's fine. I'll just get there. I was getting there.
Oh, sorry. Right,
Sorry.
Yeah.
So okay, let's start with the viral video.
Yes.
Right, the viral video. So that was actually just my cousin and I on playing music on the like balcony outside my family's house in Mauritius, and like the rest of the family just like watching. And it just went viral in Mauritius, and let me tell you why. So we did Despacito. Technically not very difficult. I mean, it's not Paganini or some crazy violin concerto that I played.
Play it upside down, underwater.
Yeah,
You know.
it was nothing crazy. But why did it get viral? Because at the end of that Despacito piece, we used the Mauritian cultural flavor of the style of the beat. That's a very Mauritian beat. It's an island vibe. We like added that twist into the Despacito song. So I mean, it's a viral song already, plus a thing that the people of Mauritius connect to on a next level connection.
Yeah.
Because it's who they are. I mean, that Mauritian beat, I've seen it in them. It's ingrained in them, you know. So that is why people liked it, and that is why it went viral. And yeah, it was really crazy because my cousin was actually on holiday in South Africa when that video went viral, because we filmed that video in December or early January, just after New Year actually, and we uploaded it at the beginning of New Year, and then this thing went viral like 6 months later. Like so long. I mean,
Later. Yeah,
it was a long time, and we were actually on a trip in Drakensberg when just suddenly my cousin's like, hey, dude, look at this. Look at how many views we suddenly got. And it was like, I think it was 60,000 or something views. And then, and yeah, it was that the one on Facebook got much more viral than the one on YouTube, because some random Mauritian site posted it on Facebook. And now I think it's sitting on 100 and something, I think.
Like, I mean, so what is that like? And what I mean by that is, you know, I didn't study your YouTube channel like super deeply, but I did skim it, right?
Yeah.
And what would I say? That it's all of the videos I've seen are very intimate.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, they're not like studio level. Do you know what I mean? This is what I mean by intimate. It's like you've done a couple of very interesting ones, though. You've done the ones that are like more music video themed, so I don't want to like put a blanket on it. Sorry, did you want to?
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, my growing up, chilling and vibing, like playing my instrument in the lounge with my dad, my brother, my mom. You know, it was a very common occurrence. So a lot of my videos are that, just playing in my lounge or playing at home.
Like the most recent one you did with your dad, right, for Father's Day that's the most recent one on the YouTube channel. Was I wrong about that? It's not the most recent one?
I did do something for Father's Day.
Yeah, that's what I mean by intimate. It's like literally you
Do you
and
know,
your dad
like
in
that?
lounge.
That was the day I was going back to Pretoria, and I was so my dad and I were just practicing on our own, and then my mom was like, "Hey, just do a video, just film a video." So we didn't even bother to like change our clothes or anything like that. We just filmed it the way it was, and I mean, that's who I am. I'm a very I do like the studio thing. I have done quite a lot of that, and I want to do a lot more. It's just that that's also expensive. And maybe one day I'll be able to do
the editing yourself, or do you bring a guy in?
I've done a lot of the editing myself, but there were a few music stuff that I did where I did the music and the video myself. Like I did one Cape Town. I got my uncle in Cape Town to just like film me wherever we were hiking with my violin, and that was fun. But I did that one on my own, So it just depends. But I feel like I write a lot of music, and that's not out yet. I write
a
lot.
Bearing a piece of your soul in a way?
It is.
Yeah.
I do have a few of my original compositions on my YouTube channel, but I have a lot that I've written that I want to do, like go and spend time in the studio, refining it to its core, because
to do the best version of it that you could.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I perform a lot of my original stuff. I like live. So maybe at a show or something, I might be doing one of my original pieces. But when it comes to like putting it out there on social media and on the internet, I want it to be like a good quality version of it, Yeah. And when I think about my compositions, I think of it as like it's a part of my soul, it's part of who I am. And a lot of these things, I feel like I don't know how it comes to me, it just happens. I don't have like a process, where I'm like sitting down and now I'm going to write a composition like that. It doesn't happen like that. I've had compositions in the middle of the night coming in my head and just like on my phone quickly recording. I've had once I had like while having a shower or something like that, like it will just like a melody would just come into my mind or an idea would come into my mind. And I think that's another thing, going back to like the beginning of the conversation where you were talking about pharmacy and music. Thing is, with pharmacy, it gives me a little bit of money to fund my music too. It's expensive to be a musician.
Yeah, it's like my job as a data scientist is the reason for any of this, I mean, it's not huge, but like,
No, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
Mics, equipment are expensive. As a musician,
I mean, I definitely saved some money on the cameras.
Oh yeah. By the
I'll
way,
skim out.
there are spoons.
Don't look at those. She's lying.
I'm just kidding. But
no. I mean, they are spoons. So,
no, I mean, like, I'm just messing with you. But it's expensive to be a musician, and which is why.
I mean, I also sort of meant like the place to live and food on the table and transport and lifestyle and all these things.
I mean, music. Let me tell you, instruments are expensive.
Oh God,
very expensive, right? Music lessons, expensive.
Yeah.
Recording studio, expensive. Shows, bloody expensive.
Yeah.
You have to pay for a venue, you have to pay for advertising, you have to pay for a sound guy, equipment, whatever, decor. You have to look nice, clothes, so showbiz is expensive.
Yeah.
So that also is another thing that keeps me going. Music, for my music life. I mean, as dancing, I also dance, right? So as a classical dancer, you need jewelry that you can't just perform with like no jewelry sometimes, the outfits are expensive as a dancer. Rehearsal space is expensive. So yeah, I sometimes, if I have a bad day at work, I'm like, when you go home and you touch your violin and you play your violin, just remember that your days of hard work is literally paying for that. It's paying for that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's the healthiest way of thinking of it, because I mean, I make it seem that that I don't like my job, but I do. I love being a pharmacist, but sometimes I do know that deep inside, my music is my center of everything.
It's the negotiation, it's the compromise, right? It's like it's like I throw a rock up into the sky and I say, this is going to the moon, and then reality is like, no, and it lands next to me.
Yeah.
Right. It's the compromise that you have to have with. Wow, that was a terrible way to illustrate this point. The compromise. I just wanted. Wow, what even was that metaphor? Anyway.
No, but it does make sense. You want to strive to reach the moon, but sometimes reality hits, and
you need a rocket, brother.
You gotta get back to Earth,
Yeah, and rockets are expensive, and someone has to buy that metal, and someone has to refine that ore, and someone has to, and so a certain amount of money.
Rocket fuel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. But good luck, Shruti. Seriously, man. And seriously, get your stuff recorded, dude. And
it's gonna happen. Trust me. Like when you ask me 5 years, I think one thing that I know for sure is that I do want to put more original content out
there,
and like more refined content, and also perform more. I love performing. I love having shows. I just think about it and I get like goosebumps. I love it. I love it. So
more of that drug.
Yeah,
please.
yeah, and sometimes you put all of this money and effort, and then you get one view, or you get like an empty auditorium. But you know what? That's the journey of being an artist, being a content creator. So
that's another one of the reasons I wanted to interview you, is because this age bracket that we're at, sort of like postgraduate, right?
Yeah.
But not been in the industry for like 20 years. We're not, and so we're at this stage in career where it's very much about like building.
Yeah.
And it's the unsexy part. You know what I'm saying? It's the unsexy part that does not get any attention that I think deserves to be shown. It's the putting all this effort into the video and one view. It's the empty auditorium.
But think about it also. It's also about the journey that makes you reach to that point. Like, for example, with your podcast, it probably took some mental work to decide, okay, I want to do this, and this is why I want to do this. It's about the journey, and a lot of our concerts, I've had concerts we used to have concerts every 3 months in Durban when I lived back in Durban, and the one concert, it was a flop, right? I mean, not the music, but I'm saying in terms of money. The place that we had it at, it was, we probably sold like half, not even half, or like we ended up just dishing out tickets to people because people were just not buying tickets.
Bums on seats, yeah.
So it was very heartbreaking in that sense, and we had to still pay for everything, so that came up from our own pockets. So but when it came to the music, Hamish, that was our best show, like till date. We worked so hard. Everything was classically like involved, and the one rehearsal we had was like 3 hours for one song, because that's how much we delved into it. We had every chord was right, every beat was there, every piece that we played was like, I think about it, and that thrill of getting to that point was so fulfilling that hey, we lost money, so what?
I think in some ways it's like a clarity of purpose, right? Because it's like, if you're not earning money from the thing, why are you there? And do you know what I mean? And so psychologically, it's like, well, we're here for the goddamn music, and so it comes out.
Same with your podcast.
Yeah.
I mean,
thanks, man.
Good luck, because it's not always gonna be easy, but that fulfillment.
Guests, bro. Like I've tried to get this one. Like I'm trying to get a dinosaur scientist. They do not reply.
No, but you struggle, and it's that journey when you actually achieve it that is so fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's like when you click that upload button, it's gonna be a good feeling, right?
Well, I can tell you for the first one I uploaded, it was probably the most proud I've ever been of anything, and it wasn't even that good. Like, oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, just know that if ever you need a guest again,
Yeah.
I am here for you.
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
I mean, you can do another podcast.
Yeah.
I love to talk.
Would you like to be a regular? No, I'm kidding. Okay, but yeah, no. We'll. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it's reaching a natural conclusion. Are you happy with where it's?
Are you
where it's
happy?
at? Yeah.
You are the one.
Yeah, dude, I'm out of questions, bro.
Oh.
You know. No, so well, I guess there's. I think it's at a good spot. Eh?
I'm at a good spot too.
Yeah, thank you, Shruti.
Good luck. Well done.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. That was a what would you call? Let me stop recording.
Okay.